At the same time, what are we talking about today? A Bezos bailout.
I feel like we have like
what's happening here?
Bezos update every day, but my God.
He's the richest man in the world. What are we supposed to do?
And not only that, he like controls the labor market, controls the consumer market. And this is something Ryan Grimm actually brought to our attention initially. He was in line to get this $10 billion bailout for his Blue Origin space company, and this NASA contract. And essentially what had happened is he had lost out on a competitive bid process to another billionaire space company, Elon Musk. What is this thing called?
Which one? Blue Origin?
Elon Musk
SpaceX.
thing. SpaceX, yeah. So he lost out on the contract to SpaceX, and so he went to Maria Cantwell, Democrat,
his home senator,
liberal Democrat from his home state of Washington. And she said, you know what? One $10 billion contract, not enough. Let's put another one in so we can make sure that Blue Origin ultimately gets these dollars. Now, listen, just to be clear, it's not like the money is earmarked for him, but there are only so many billionaire space companies that could win this contract potentially. So it's very clear what happened here ultimately. So the update is that funding went through. Bipartisan basis last week. Very few objections raised. We can throw this here on the screen. Another great friend of the show, Jeff Stein, says, in case you missed it, the Senate tonight approved a bill with overwhelming bipartisan support that included $10 billion in lunar lander contracts likely to go to Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin company. Of course, we also covered that he'll be flying aboard one of these Blue Origins. I think it's fake space travel personally, but anyway.
Right, because they are not going to, what is it? They're not going to orbital space.
Yeah, they're just technically going to like the lowest limit of space, but anyway.
To lower Earth orbit. I think that should be the limit. Lower Earth orbit, that's space. Anything else is fake space. But
the other piece of this, though, just to add one more thing, and then I want to hear your thoughts, is so Bernie Sanders, probably partly because of Ryan Grimm's reporting, like he caught wind of this. He was tweeting about it.
Good.
Warren Reynolds, they were going after him. They were saying, absolutely no, we're not doing a Bezos bailout. But in this story, it says the chip funding troubled some lawmakers. Senator Bernie Sanders for days criticized the measure because the money did not come with significant strings attached. He sought to prohibit companies from taking federal aid to subsidize their manufacturing, then purchasing back stock or padding their executives' pay. But he did not prevail in pushing for his amendment, and he ultimately did vote against the bill because he wasn't able to get that amendment through that would have blocked this bailout. So Bernie tried, but ultimately failed and did vote against the bill, but otherwise overwhelming bipartisan support.
There's actually been a fun corollary to this, just as an aside I want you guys to know, which is that it was brought to my attention. Senator John Cornyn tried to put in a provision where we were going to give all this money to semiconductor manufacturer in America.
Yeah.
He wanted to take fair wage practices out of that so that they could then pay, they could not only take federal dollars, but then they didn't have to pay a fair prevailing wage to the workers. And actually, luckily, 8 Republicans did step up and vote down that amendment. But my own home state senator, John Cornyn, thank you, John Cornyn, for standing up for the right of businesses to use federal dollars and then not pay fair wages to workers.
He's like number 2 or
Texas
3,
thanks
right?
you for their service.
In leadership.
He's the number 3 Republican in the entire Senate. I just want people to be aware of just how uncouth and horrible these people are. But back to Bezos. This is my favorite. Also, by the way, it takes a lot of courage for Jeff to tweet that because he technically works for Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
So props, dude. Here's how the Post writes it. In a chamber often rocked by partisan division, Democrats and Republicans found rare accord over the sprawling measure known as the United States Innovation and Competition Act, as lawmakers warned that Washington risks ceding country's technological leadership to one of its foremost geopolitical adversaries. All of that is true. And if this was just about semiconductors, I would say that the bill is 1/3 of what it should be. Let's give billions of dollars more. Let's build it right here in the USA. But unfortunately, well, what did they do? They go and attach this little Bezos bailout into the $10 billion authorization for 2 lunar landing contracts, which would benefit Blue Origin. And then they have to say who also owns the Washington Post, Cantwell, whose committee oversees NASA, spearheaded the spending as part of that bipartisan amendment. Now, why is this even more important? Which is that this is the key part that actually Ryan Grimm made. NASA has been asking for new money for years. And so Maria Cantwell, the senator who oversees NASA's budget, was not willing to provide a $10 billion authorization to NASA. She was not willing to give to the government agency who also used to land stuff on the moon. I don't know. It's been a while. Instead, what does she do? When Bezos needs a $10 billion contract for lunar lander, it sails right through Congress. Bipartisan, okay? And now, look, holding the bill up over this and all that, I don't know. There's a lot of good stuff in the Frontier Act and more. But this is just a disgusting display of Jeff Bezos, who centers his company, Amazon, in Washington. He owns the entire state of Washington. He's the richest man in the world, owns the Washington Post, owns so many levers of power in America. They just bought MGM Studios. I think that's the last monologue I ever did over at Rising, which is now he owns Hollywood because he didn't own enough here in America, and can use the senator from Washington in order to write in a special provision directly for his company. That is just, I don't know how else to describe corruption.
It's brazen.
It's so brazen.
It's truly brazen. Like, that's as close as you're gonna come in America to that direct,
that's right.
exchange of cash.
Yes, right.
You got like one thin veneer layer where it doesn't technically say in the law this is going to Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin, but it's 100% clear to everyone involved exactly what is happening. And in terms of the bill overall, like, I agree with you. I think the semiconductor thing, like supporting,
so
I do support, bolstering manufacturing in this country so that we have our own supply lines. It's something that we saw in coronavirus, like some of our critical PPE, et cetera. We were really kind of hosed and dependent on China in particular, but other countries as well. But if you're this was Bernie's point, if you're going to give money to these companies, then you need to have some strings attached.
Of course, like being able to pay having to pay a
good
fair wage.
Right, a good wage and union rights. And by the way, you can't just use this money to then like engage in these stock purchase buybacks and bolster your executive pay and all of that stuff. And that's what Bernie was pushing for that and couldn't get bipartisan agreement on. Like, who was voting against that? And the fact of the matter is, like, everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, it was you lost on both sides of the aisle just to attach some basic strings to these provisions. So you have the first level of like this disgusting bailout for the richest man on the freaking planet, who, by the way, we also learned pays next to zero, some years literal zero.
Negative. He actually took government money for his child.
Right.
And nothing against his kids, but I'm sorry. I think they're doing just fine.
Unbelievable, claiming a child tax credit because he lost money Lost money though. Anyway, so he's paying zero in taxes, but he's getting a $10 billion bailout, and then they can't even agree to add some basic strings to this funding so that the companies that are receiving it don't just use it for stock buybacks and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Amazing. Always be skeptical. Anytime you see these like bipartisan packages, you should start to get nervous.
Well, this is also a very important point, which I make here all the time. Congress works plenty. It just works for the rich. And, people are like, oh, Congress can't get anything done. Oh, no, it gets a lot done. Defense budget, ain't got no problems. Whenever it comes to the Bezos bailout, nope, no problems whatsoever. Whenever you want to go and you want to look at the specific authorizations and the things that are able to be moved through Congress, this is the type of stuff. Show me one corporate media segment, which informed the American people that this even happened. People don't even know. Yeah. They have no idea. And that's the thing, which actually bothers me even more. You want to talk about, these congressional correspondents, I know many of them, are running around Capitol Hill right now. They'll stick a camera and a mic in every senator's face and ask them about the goddamn January 6th commission. Enough about the goddamn commission. What about the Bezos bailout? Ask Maria Cantwell, corner her in the hall of the U.S. Senate, and say, why are you bailing out the richest man in the world? When you find me a journalist who will do that, maybe the country will be 1/10 a little bit better.
Indeed.